So I'm here now with director, writer, one of the stars of Paranormal Diaries, Clophill, Kevin Gates. Welcome.
Thank you
for joining us.
Great to be here.
I wanted to talk to you a bit, just to start off with, about Clophill. It's a real place, isn't it? It's got, a real history of kind of paranormal happenings.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because you did a short before the feature, didn't you, about the kind of area?
We did a lot of research about Clophill. Clophill is a village in Bedfordshire, close to where I grew up. And it's got this ruined church on top of a hill that's it's been there for centuries, but fell into disrepair in the 50s. And in the 60s there was this sort of revivalist time of the occult, and there was a lot of sort of stuff going on, certainly in the UK. And in March 1963, a group of Aleister Crowley-esque followers went up there and performed what people thought was a black mass at the time. They desecrated a load of graves, took out the bones of a woman, and arranged them in a sort of ritualistic fashion, very Dennis Wheatley sort of style, sacrifice to cockerel. And it was discovered by some kids the next day, and it was this sort of 7-day wonder in the press, but led to loads more incidents happening at Clophill and across the country. So, and I'd known about it for years, but only more recently I'd sort of found out the truth about what actually happened there. It was all sort of rumour about, the church faces the wrong way and all this sort of stuff, and it's sort of, I went out there as a kid, and sort of, what I knew back then was just these rumours about witchcraft. But no, it's a fascinating place.
And the rite that they were doing was actually it was necromancy, wasn't it? They were attempting to kind of contact.
Yeah, if you look at actually what happened and sort of, it's nothing really to do with Black Mass. If you sort of research what a Black Mass, what actually happens during a Black Mass, it was more sort of based around necromancy. The idea of sort of, using the skull as a mediumistic force to tell the future or something like that, or for some other sort of other deed, but interesting stuff.
So those kind of blurred lines between fact and fiction, how much of kind of sightings and stuff there might be hysteria or for other reasons, it kind of very much feeds into your film, which definitely has a kind of a blurring of the lines between what is really happening, what is kind of the documentary form, and what is, what was kind of added.
Yeah.
How did you first kind of come across come to the idea that you would meld those two things together over this?
Well, the original idea, it was an experimental piece. The original framework of the film was shot during June 2010, and it was an investigation at Clophill. There was no it was purely sort of like a documentary. So we enlisted sort of, real experts, real witnesses. We tracked down who'd, witnessed things that had gone on there in the 60s and 70s, and also sort of paranormal stuff more recently. So for the most part, it was completely genuine, and that was really important because that sort of almost set up the backstory for the film. And during the weekend, all the investigation stuff we did was completely real. We then obviously, worked in additional sort of fictitious elements that we shot sort of later on at different locations and that kind of stuff. But it was really important that we sort of stuck to sort of what Clophill was really about and the stuff that had gone on there. Even in the sort of fictitious scenes that I wrote, it wasn't too far removed from what actually did happen there.
I read somewhere that the daughter of a story is told during the film about the daughter of some of the people that feature in it, and that's actually a real story. She had a real experience.
Yeah, well, one of the kids in the film, which is actually Craig and Chris's, both their daughters appear in the film, and that was just one of those really sort of happy accidents that you always hope will happen on a film. Usually cursed with bad luck or whatever, but this was like literally, okay, I gave Craig the camera the night before the shoot started and said, right, okay, just film yourselves getting ready in the morning, just so we've got some footage of that we can cut in, nothing too much. And they sort of interviewed their daughters, and the youngest one actually does have these experiences of seeing ghosts and witches, which of course is precisely what Clophill's about, but we couldn't have planned for that. It's just one of those sort of happy accidents, but it just worked out well. And also for the way the film sort of finishes, it kind of, we sort of played on that a bit. So yeah, it was just it was luck, but it was, we were very happy that happened.
Were there any other spooky happenings over the course of especially the initial filming, when most people didn't know quite what was going on, that they did think it was kind of more of a documentary?
Yeah, you'd be surprised actually. I think when people watch it, they'll probably think, nah, that wasn't real. But there was stuff. There was all the stuff with the security guards you see in the film. They weren't on the shoot to be in the film. They were on the shoot to be doing security to stop all the kids coming up while we were filming. But stuff was happening, and they were sort of reacting to things, seeing sort of shadows and hearing footsteps and stuff. So I thought, okay, we've got to get this on camera. Stuff like that happened. They were really freaked out. You know, and these were guys who sort of do bodyguard work and sort of, you know, security at football matches. When it came to sort of Clophill and the supernatural, you know, they didn't quite know how to react.
So was it quite, for some people, quite a scary shoot? Kind of generally?
I think certainly for a few people. I mean, obviously, you know, there were guys on the crew who were very sceptical as well. You know, and actually, what was good though is that we didn't tell them that we were actually going to work in some fictional elements. So we sort of tricked our friends right up to the end as well, which was always good fun. But I think it was more sort of. I know that Chris was very sort of freaked out, but she, you know, she's very religious and actually believes in all this sort of stuff, whereas her husband Craig is the complete opposite, so that's quite good. But yeah, it was just more the sort of security guards who we hadn't planned for them to be sort of freaked out, but they were, so it was kind of worked well for us.
But you weren't scared at any point, of course?
Well, the thing is, though, I'd done a lot of research and been up there so many times in the past that I knew every entrance in and out of Clophill, even though it's like in the middle of nowhere. You know, I was sort of, to be honest, I was more focused on the camera work, so making sure that was all done. So I didn't really have time to be scared. But no, I'm on the fence in terms of believing in that sort of stuff. Friends who have witnessed stuff that they can't explain, but I've not really had anything apart from sleep paralysis that happened to me.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. That's the only sort of supernatural way. Not that it is really supernatural. That's the only thing I would say that's happened to me that's given me a sort of experience. Thought that, well, actually, you know, that was a bit freaky. I can't quite explain that.
But you're definitely until you see it with your eyes.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm open-minded, and lots of people have seen stuff who I know and trust. But until I see something myself, and maybe that'll change the way I think about things if that happens. But I have to see.
Just talking about the kind of the filming of the film. What are obviously you're quite experienced now when it comes to the kind of found footage kind of documentary kind of style, having done Zombie Diaries as well. What are the kind of challenges of that kind of form, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very economical way of filming, you know, and a lot of people use that for that reason. But it's got to be realistic, you know. You have to have spot on performances. I think Zombie Diaries 1 there were some good performances, there were some patchy performances. I think Zombie Diaries 2 improved on that, but I don't think it felt as real, I'll be honest. I thought it was sort of, because we shot it on sort of higher end cameras, it was more of a regimented shoot. It didn't have perhaps the rough feel that the first one did. So with Clophill, we wanted to sort of try and, you know, make it as realistic as possible. And the only way we could do that was actually to make it real, you know, and actually not to really employ actors in the film, but literally it's just real people reacting to real things going on. And for the additional scenes we shot, obviously we sort of kept them very subtle. They weren't over the top. We weren't relying on, you know, Craig is an actor and he's in the film as part of the documentary crew, but there's nothing there, you know. He's not playing a character, he's playing himself. So if he steps out of being himself, I'll know, and I'll have to tell him, no, less, you know, that sort of stuff. But usual. Yeah,
I mean, the performances definitely do feel really quite, you know, naturalistic, and I was surprised upon watching the film and then, you know, looking into the kind of, you know, the IMDb list and this sort of thing, at how much kind of crew were in the film, because it did feel very natural. Were you at all kind of nervous about doing that in terms of what people would be like on screen?
Possibly, yeah.
Because it's a bit of a risk.
I mean, Mike and I weren't actually going to be in the film originally. It's just the way things worked out. Originally, we were going to sort of get the crew together, send them out, and we would sort of set things up, you know, along the way if we needed to. We thought that was perhaps too much of a risk, and because we'd done all the research, we thought, okay, we've got to be involved in this. So I was conscious that, you know, because I'm not an actor, I don't claim to be an actor, but I'm just in it as myself, you know, and just we're in those sort of scenes. But yeah, but even the stuff where we film the interviews afterwards and it cuts back, you know, again, 90% of that is us telling, you know, stories about what actually did happen up there. You know, there's only sort of a fraction of it is where we're just making a few things up.
Well, again though, as this is kind of a technique that you do keep going back to, of the kind of, you know, kind of documentary style, kind of what else about it, other than obviously, you know, it's economical and you can also be quite raw with it. What else kind of attracts you to it? And is it something that you want to kind of continue to explore? Like,
well, I think, you know, I've done 3 films now, and there is interest in doing another Paranormal Diaries. I have to see how that pans out, you know. But to be honest, I think it is a rather tired subgenre now, and I think pretty much every area of horror has been done now with this. But it is, people, you know, and it's quite a sort of Marmite sort of thing as well. A lot of people like it, a lot of people hate it as well. There's always going to be that. I probably won't do another found footage film, certainly for a while. I mean, we may, if we do another Paranormal Diaries, it's not going to copy the same approach. I think I've got to bring something fresh to it, which is what we did with Clophill. We tried to do something fresh. We didn't just do another found footage film that was exactly the same as it's like the Zombie Diaries. But I think it'll be interesting to see how that sort of subgenre develops further, whether it is coming to the end of its cycle now, whether there's going to be another resurgence. But you know, I think it's been a bit overplayed now, I think, you know, and there are still some good films coming out that are found footage, but I think for me personally, I think I probably will want to do something that's a bit different next, you know, that's perhaps more of a traditional film, but certainly sort of within the horror genre, and probably we've got a few scripts we're looking at the moment. Certainly sort of the occult side of the horror genre is something that appeals to me, just based on the research we did on this film. So see what happens.
Is that, you know, when you're kind of watching horror, watching current horror, is that kind of what you lean towards? That sort of, you know, quite gothic and supernatural kind of?
Yeah, I mean, perhaps not so much supernatural usually, but certainly gothic atmosphere. You know, I'm a big fan of Lucio Fulci and all the Italian horror films. That's where I'm sort of coming from. Although the more mainstream side, I love early John Carpenter. You know, The Thing is the movie for me that's the benchmark and always will be, so I'll always say that. But yeah, I think the more sort of gothic style, sort of Fulci-esque atmosphere of films where I'm coming from. Not necessarily the sort of the hardcore splatter, although that is an element of it, but yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
Or the full-on psychedelia of the kind of...
Oh yeah, that's good as well.
The kind of early work.
Yeah. Lizard in a woman's skin, all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Indeed. So you're looking at a few different scripts at the moment, but you're not decided yet on what?
Not yet,
kind of
no.
next,
There's a few things. There's always things in the pipeline. There's always people sort of saying, "Oh, do you want to do another Zombie Diaries film?" I was like, "Well, not at the moment, you know." Although to be honest, we made a statement at the end of that film by not shooting the last scene found footage. Like, okay, if we do another one, it's going to be a post-apocalyptic tale, but it's not found footage. So we're looking at a few scripts. We've got it's a cult horror film that we're looking at, and there's a bigger project that you know, might have some news on soon, but I can't say too much about that at the moment. But that's again, that's a gothic horror, so yeah, right up my street, but we'll see what happens.
Brilliant. Look forward to seeing what happens next. Thank you.
Thank you.